This week's parasha, Parshat Yitro, is a very special parasha because it's the Torah portion that we read of the receiving of the Torah. The climax of which is the giving of the Ten Commandments. If we count the ordinal number of this parasha from the beginning of the Torah, it is the 17th Torah reading. 17 in Hebrew is the word tov, which means good. The sages teach us that en tov ela Torah, the essence of goodness, of good, is the Torah itself. And that's why the Torah was given in that parasha, which is number 17, number tov. Each parasha at the end, it's written in almost every chumash how many verses appear in the Torah reading. In the Torah reading of Yitro, there are ayin bet, 72 verses. The number 72 is equal to the word chesed. Chesed is kindness, or loving kindness. Clearly, these two allusions, hints, based upon the number of the ordinal number of the parasha in the Torah, and the number of verses in the parasha, are related to one another. Good and kindness, tov and chesed. There's one and only one verse in the whole Tanakh, in the whole Bible, that juxtaposes these two words together. It's in perhaps the most famous psalm of King David's Psalms, number 23. The concluding verse reads, Ach tov v'chesed yurdafuni kol yemei chayei. Only good and kindness shall pursue me all of the days of my life, that I shall sit in the presence of Hashem, la'orech yamim, forever and ever. What is the implication of this juxtaposition of tov and chesed? What does it mean? What is the difference? They're clearly related concepts, goodness and kindness. But there must be some difference between them also. There's two different words, and especially if they're put together in an idiom, a phrase, ach tov v'chesed, only good and kind. The Zohar, which is the classic text of the Kabbalah, explains that the difference between tov and chesed is that tov does not spread out or extend itself, whereas chesed itpashet. Tov lo itpashet, v'chesed itpashet. That's the phrase in the Zohar. That good stays within itself. The first letter of the word tov, good in Hebrew, is a tet. That the very form of the letter in Hebrew implies introversion, or in the way that the Zohar expresses it, tuvei ganiz bigavei. Its goodness is introverted within itself. Obviously, a person can be good to others, and every person that is good in his heart does express his goodness to others. But there's something essential about goodness, that it begins with an introverted feeling and sense of divine light, because the first time that the word good appears in the Torah is in the verse of following the creation of light, Vayar Elokim et or ki tov, that God saw the light to be good, and it's explained to mean that God saw that the light is so good it has to be contained within itself, it has to be hidden within itself. When someone possesses something very, very good, some very precious item, so he most often will conceal it, will hide it. Ki tov legonzo, it's good to hide. So there's something about goodness that is introverted and is concealed within oneself. Whereas the other word, chesed, implies yeminot chapkeni. The chesed in Kabbalah, kindness, is the right hand, which embraces, which extends outwardly and embraces the other in love. Sometimes we call it just kindness, or sometimes we translate it loving kindness, because the inner motivation of kindness, of chesed, is ahava, is love. So once more, the Zohar explains that the difference between these two terms is that tov is an introverted goodness, and chesed is an extroverted goodness. Both are good, but this is good and this is kind. Originally, these two characteristics were the descriptive personalities of Moshe himself, Moses, through whom God gave us the Torah, and his brother, his older brother Aaron. Aaron is the priest. Priests are kind. That's what the Torah says. Ish chesed. But Moses himself, when he was born, is more just like when God created light. He looked at it and saw that it was good. It was good to be concealed. The very same thing is described about Moses' birth. That his mother Yocheved looked at him, saw that he was good, and hid him. As soon as she saw that he was good, she hid him away, just like the primordial light of creation. So Moses also, we know that Moses, it was hard for him to speak. He was a kvad peh v'kvad lashon. He had a heavy mouth and tongue, because his consciousness was introverted good, essentially. Whereas his brother Aaron was the very opposite personality. He was extroverted. In Hasidut it says there's another very, very famous pair of archetypal souls, that one is introverted, the other is extroverted. Shaul and David, the first king of Israel, Saul, and the second king of Israel, who becomes the eternal king of Israel, who is King David HaMelech. The sages say that both of them were great Torah scholars, but King Saul hid his Torah knowledge. Lo gali mesechta is the phrase in Chazal. Whereas King David, the very opposite, gali mesechta, he revealed to all his Torah knowledge. So one was introverted, his personality, and the other is extroverted. It says that in Hasidut that all controversies that we find amongst the sages all go back to these two basic personality types of introversion versus extroversion. When Mashiach comes, these two will have to connect and combine. As King David himself says in the verse that we quoted before, Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni. May both of them together pursue me. When does that happen? How can that happen? How can we understand a one figure, one person, who is both simultaneously an introvert and an extrovert, thereby also solving all controversies within the Torah itself? Because all controversies within the Torah derive from these two different personality types. So this also is alluded to in this Torah reading. We said that Moses himself was initially hard to speak, kvad peh ukvad lashon, but he was healed before the Torah was given. In our parasha, it says, Moshe yedaber v'Elokim yahanenu v'kol. Moses spoke, and God answered him with voice. He gave him voice, and he gave him the ability to speak, and speak loud, and to convey himself, to convey his truth and his goodness to all. There's another verse that also reads in the very same portion, in this week's portion, Vayered Moshe min hahar el ha'am, that Moses descended from the mountain to the people, straight from on high to below, straight to the people. It's explained in Chassidut that the mountain represents his solitude, his introversion, his receiving the Torah, the light and the goodness into himself. But then immediately from the mountain he descends to the people. And the people is that the purpose of receiving all of this light and goodness is to give all the kindness, the chesed of this light and this goodness. Even that very phrase, min hahar el ha'am, from the mountain to the people, its gematria, its numerical value, is the same as Moses, Moshe, when his name is written in full Mem Shin Hey, min hahar Elam. This is the essence or the filling of the essence of Moses, that he is directly descends from his introversion to extroversion and is able to unite the two. Mashiach will unite them even more. It says that many, many great tzadikim like the Baal Shem Tov initially were in solitude, were introverts, were tzadikim nistarim, concealed tzadikim that did not and could not reveal themselves to the public, to all. But then there came a point in their lives that they were commanded from on high. This is also part of the Ten Commandments, that you must reveal yourself. All of that goodness and light that you were given is for the Jewish people, is for all of mankind. And you yourself, deep down, want to be an extrovert. Just you were born an introvert. But your purpose, and the purpose that will serve all of humanity, is that you unite these two qualities in your soul. That first, the introversion, but you must become a tzaddik, galui, a revealed tzaddik, which is an extrovert. So the first one that began to unite the two is Moses in this week's parasha, and that's why it is the number good parasha, but it has chesed, kind verses, the number of verses in the parasha.